Welcome to the She's Just Not That Into You podcast, where we're redefining female experiences and prioritizing female perspectives. I'm Rianne.
And I'm Ji-Yun. We are two friends with global background, sharing our multicultural experiences and discussing everything that sparks our passion.
Every week, we have honest, intimate conversations that we hope will inspire and empower not only each other, but women everywhere.
Welcome to another episode of She's Just Not That Into You. Today, we are going to talk about the 4B movement that started in South Korea. So basically, misogyny and sexism and all the crimes against women are so bad in Korea that so many women are actually giving up on men entirely. So basically, the 4B movement is a feminist movement, and the 4B, which is Korean for four no's, means no dating men, no sex with men, no marrying men, and no giving birth. So this movement has been going pretty viral among younger feminists in Korea, and there's been just a lot of curiosity around it, and it's been gaining a lot of attention in the States as well, and also around the world. Yeah, so Rian, when did you first hear about this movement?
Yeah, I think it must have been on a YouTube video a few years ago, because I was quite interested in Korean culture at the time because of K-dramas and K-pop and all that. And I started watching a lot of YouTube videos about Korean culture. Yeah, but in the video I watched, I think it was a Korean woman, but she was talking about it as if it's something really radical that she doesn't agree with.
Right.
Yeah, so I did learn that it was quite controversial. And then I think after that, I heard about it from you. And then as we were researching this podcast interview that we're about to do, I watched some YouTube videos about it, and I heard that the 4B movement is actually becoming popular in America nowadays after Trump became elected as president again.
Right.
And that American women have started doing it as well. So yeah, I think it seems to be quite widely talked about nowadays.
Yeah, I get that it might sound quite extreme for those who are not familiar with it. And as there's a lot of attention going around that, I think there's a lot of misinformation spreading as well. Like, I've seen so many videos of men talking about it and adding their opinions to it and saying that this is all about misandry. And there's also some people who say shaving their heads is also a mandatory part of the movement, which is not, though I know that they are saying this to show their support. So naturally, I think this would be the perfect time for us to talk about it, especially not just the two of us, but with someone who's actually been championing the voice around it and who's an expert about the 4B movement itself. We are so excited to invite Haein Shim today for the conversation. She's Korean, currently an undergrad at Stanford University. She's a passionate women's rights activist. She's also a documentary producer and has featured in a wide variety of international news outlets such as Time, The Economist, and NPR. Welcome to the podcast, Haein.
Yeah, welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast. Yeah, welcome. We're so excited to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much. Again, thank you again for reaching out to me and all of your communications. I really, really appreciate all of your labor here.
Oh, likewise. Thank you. So I guess we can jump in right away, and I'm going to just start with my first question. So what inspired you to be interested in the 4B movement and actually start spreading words about it? And how have your personal experiences shaped your commitment to it? Can you share some of your stories around it?
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much for the question, because I think this is not just a personal story, but like there's some common ground into it in like many women in their 20s in Korea.
Right.
I think the 4B movement itself, it has kind of like gained a significant traction among many young Korean women in their 20s and 30s, and some in their teens as well, especially since like 2016 Gangnam Station femicide.
Right.
I think that really galvanized a lot of women, including myself, to take action. And before 2016 Gangnam Station femicide, I suffered a lot of, with the eating disorders. I took plastic surgeries, and I kind of set this timeline of my life being, questioning my life as a woman in Korea.
Right.
And I think with my frustration with this patriarchal society that we live in, and among these women have, created kind of like a lifestyle that completely rejects the traditional like heteronormativity, and that really spoke to me like in a very like personal level. And for those who don't understand the 4B, like we're basically boycotting the relationships and sex, childbirth, and marriage with men significantly. And I think what makes the 4B movement pretty much unique is that it's really not just about like making the statement, because this is more about like us women choosing to live without men, and not as an isolation, but more of like a forming our own safe community. I don't know if that makes sense or not. And I think like the fact that like so many women, we prioritize like, our own lives and agency now. And I think this is like a really close to the women's independent movement that we have so far in Korea, and basically empowers women to take full control of their lives without men, especially like against this alarming rate of violence against women in South Korea, including all of those illegally filmed footage, image-based sexual abuse, and intimate partner violence, and of course femicide as well.
Yeah, I'm really glad that you pointed it out, because a lot of people actually think that this is just about giving no attention to men. But it's actually more about us saying, if you don't realize what's wrong in this world, we're gonna walk away from the world that you're living in, and we're gonna just create our own that we think is right. Right? So I think this is more about what we as women have realized and learned, and what directions we decided to head toward, and what kind of lifestyle and relationship that we want for ourselves. Yeah.
Right. No, that's exactly what I wanted to point it out. That's such an important point of 4B movement, because it is very much understandable that how the 4B movement might be mistaken for like celibacy, and women are basically isolating themselves without men, especially since people really don't often hear about women actively and voicing their participation in it. I think, but this is also kind of because of the movement has evolved into more of a lifestyle. Now it has been like more than like close to a decade now in Korea, and rather than more like a conventional movement, you know what I mean? And I think what truly important to kind of unpack about the 4B movement is that is not about celibacy. And this is something like people should understand. This is not about like, oh, you're not having sex, I am oppressing my desire. It's not about that. It's more of, like, look, this is like cautiously like stepping away from this compulsive heteronormativity by choice. And because we are like this peer pressure and this deeply rooted misogyny is just like choking us in the society. So our choice here with the 4B movement is basically kind of like fostering a safe community where women don't really have to feel isolated. And this doesn't mean that women can't not have sex. This is not just about, like, do not have sex unless, like, if you have sex like once a week, like you're out of this. This is not like, 4B certificate or something. Like it's not like us updating our, time clock, timeline, and like, do you have sex this week or something? Is not, because this is more kind of like they also, a lot of women in the 4B movement, they may have the relationships, you know what I mean? Including the sexual ones. And with other women specifically, and who may or may not participate in the 4B themselves. And when it comes down to like those community-wise, women really don't have to participate in every single activity together. Does it make sense? And, this is not just about like 4B group, we're doing everything, we're all spending holidays together, we're spending weekends together, we're all exercising. Is not that. Instead of like, it's kind of like respecting our intentionally choosing to spend time with other women outside of work or school, because we kind of have to be in with men in like I don't know, I guess outside of our personal spaces, and shaping how they engage with their time and relationships. So like we're choosing to spend more time with women, like that's it.
Definitely.
Oh, so can I just ask, so I've read online about the Escape the Corset movement. And is this kind of related to this? Because I think, is that one about like not dressing up for men or not adhering to conventional beauty standards and things? So is that kind of related to is this you're part of this movement, or is that something else that's similar?
Yeah, I think what you're mentioning is the Escape the Corset movement. And I
Yeah.
think the Escape the Corset movement and the 4B movement definitely goes like hand in hands. But it's not something that if you don't participate in the Escape the Corset movement,
Right.
you're not
Right,
a real
right.
feminist. This is not
Mm-hmm.
just about like some feminist certificate or something. Like this is like again, 4B movement is also as a lifestyle as the Escape the Corset movement. And for me, as a person who's been participating in the Escape the Corset movement with ton of abusive past to
Mm-hmm.
myself, like hurting
Mm-hmm.
myself and trying to change myself to fit into this abusive society, I think it just makes sense to focus on how we don't have nothing to fix.
Mm.
I hope it
Yeah.
makes sense.
So for listeners, could you give a brief summary of what the Escape the Corset movement is about? As in, are there certain beauty standards that are meant to not be adhered to, or is it just generally about kind of not worrying about what other people think of how you look?
Yeah, this is another really good question about how some people are thinking that, oh, people who are participating in the Escape the Corset movement, they just don't care about what other people think, and so they are probably just wearing like rags and like not
Yeah.
taking showers, and like no, like this is not this is not it. We're basically living everyday life, but like
Yeah.
trying to get away from the typical abusive male gaze in the life. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? So
Yeah.
for us, like getting out of that conventional beauty standard is the key. And we totally like, and I'm of course I'm generalizing. In my experience, I think it's important to see more different shapes of women and also the
Mm,
Right.
more like diverse decision of women in many standards. And that's why the Escape the Corset movement is very much important right next to the
Mm-hmm.
4B movement because it's all about centering ourselves first
Yeah.
before this, whole male gaze, male centered society.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's also interesting how people are like taking all these really verbatim, like
Mm,
the Escape the Corset movement and also the 4B
mm-mm,
movement. Like people
mm-hmm,
are always like asking, so what should I do? Like, should I like cut my hair? Like,
mm-hmm.
what are the things? What are the to-do list? I
Right,
think this really shows like how women have always been relying on what other people tell us to do, like
right.
rather than actually taking the time for ourselves and thinking about
Mm-mm,
what we should do for ourselves, right?
mm,
So yeah, I don't think there is any one right answer for all
mm.
these. Yeah.
No, that's completely valid because for me, like getting into this movement is not just about okay, like one day I'm gonna stop wearing makeup like all of a sudden and like, I'm gonna find
Mm-hmm.
myself, like traveling away.
Yeah.
It's not it.
Mm-hmm.
This is more about facing
Right.
the fear that we have never talked about before. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
what about I cut my hair right now and I'm in the heterosexual relationship and somehow my boyfriend's gonna dump me? Then
Mm-hmm.
does he really like the person I am or he like the hair? Like
Right.
the concept of me. So
Mm-hmm.
this is the whole question of the fear of being a woman, like what am I really? Then what
Mm-hmm.
about my value without this conventional concept of being a woman? Then
Right.
what if I cut my hair? What if I stop wearing makeup? What if I stop doing all the things that I was supposed to do as a woman?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Then am I not a woman? So that was my own experience with participating in this movement. So as a person who's been super obsessed with K beauty and like, oh, my
Mm-hmm.
value is gonna be done by Christmas, like like in Korea we call it as like a Christmas
Like
age, like
25
women,
years old.
yeah,
Yeah.
25 years old, like you're done. As a person who's been like facing the fear of getting old and
Mm-hmm.
completely valued all of my life value as some insane timeline, like I should
Mm-hmm.
get married this age and I should have kids this.
Oh my.
I know, and I was that person before, and
Mm-hmm.
fear, like facing my fear was something that I don't know, it set me up because like I
Yeah.
remember having this conversation with my best friend who kind of led me to this movement. I was very defensive. I was like,
Mm.
well, but like it makes me really happy. Look, I understand that my refrigerator is completely empty because I don't eat things, and my bank account, I'm basically broke. I've been always broke. and I'm more broke because I'm spending way more money in this cosmetics and new clothing and new shoes and everything, but it makes me happy. This is my decision. But and her answer, she didn't even say a word. She was like, but is it really your decision? And it kind of hit me in the head. And then she was in college back then and I was not. And she kind of gave me this whole short version of, feminism 101. And yeah, that was my wake up call, because I got so defensive. I'm like, who do you think you are telling me how to live my life? And on the way home, I was like, wait, you know what? I think she's right. And then I apologized to her. Hey, you know what? I do love to learn more about what you were saying earlier. And yeah, that's how I start focusing on my own life instead of what I was supposed to do.
That's such an inspiring story.
No, thank you.
Not many people actually reach that point where they actually take the time to process everything, and you actually apologized to her for that, and not everyone does that.
Yeah, because it's so uncomfortable, it's so uncomfortable hearing the person you love, your besties. But yeah, I kind of thought that she would definitely say things like that to me because she really cares about me, and she knew that what I was going through was probably really hard to bear as someone who loves you. Like, you will see your besties not eating. You will see your besties literally spending all of her money on clothing and makeup. And, you said that you want to go back to school, but like, you're not really saving money. You're spending all of your money for this instant joy of addicted to this consumerism. So yeah, it was a sociology 101, feminist studies 101. And yeah, I'm really, really grateful to have her in my life for sure.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that story. It's really brave of you to be so kind of self-reflective and introspective and realize all these things about yourself. But yeah, speaking of which, I have heard that there are some Korean women who are against the 4B movement, and I was wondering, what do you think about this, especially as someone who previously was not fully on board with it either yourself?
Right. Well, this is a hot take, but like before okay. I'm laughing because I'm just so embarrassed.
Why are you embarrassed?
Look, I did not know what feminism was before, and I used to tell people that I'm an anti-feminist.
Oh my god!
No, honestly, this is a huge hot take. Look, this is me basically going to feminist church and asking for forgiveness. Okay.
Oh my god!
Like, look, I am so sorry. Like, I am probably just, because I just wanted to make sure, like, people in Korea seems like they just don't like feminists, and, like, not just don't like, they absolutely hate feminists without knowing what feminism is.
Yeah.
And they don't even want to know. And at first, I was kind of in that boat as well. And I understand that there are a lot of Korean women who do not agree with the movement that's going on with the 4B and Escape the Corset movement. But again, let's kind of like circle back and talk about what we really know about the movement.
Definitely.
Yeah, like just like before with my confession here, I didn't know a whole lot, and it's so easy to hate someone and hate the group of people that you really don't know.
Right.
And what I really wanted to clarify here is that people who are participating in the 4B movement, we do not have some special tattoos or some weird, I don't know, like weird looking things. Like, people will think that like we're weird groups or something. Like, we're just people who are living everyday life. We're busy waking up, going to work, going to school. We're just everyday people who decide to participate in this movement to focus ourselves.
I feel like so many people in Korea, they treat like the feminists like as if they are some sort of like a part of cult organization or something.
I know.
Like, it's just so crazy.
they think like, oh, like, oh, I heard like a lot of people, like male specifically, call me like, oh, you're like feminazi, you don't know what you're
Oh
doing, you're
my.
like, like female supremacies and everything. But like, what do you really know about
Mhm.
our movement?
Mhm.
And then they say nothing because they know nothing about like what has been the important issues in Korean society being a woman, because the society is perfect as it is for them. So they don't really
Mhm.
have to know. That's their, privilege they do not want to acknowledge. But,
Right.
just as women participating in the 4B movement, basically, boycotting the heterosexual dating and marriage, this is also kind of important to mention that we are not only just living our lifestyle like this, but we're also fighting against the gender-based violence in many different ways. In a probably the most effective way to not to participate in that relationship at all. So
Mhm.
despite of exposure to a range of violence, because we're feminists and because we're participating in this 4B movement, and we're pretty noticeable with our short hairs and our choice of dress,
Right.
we do kind of like strive to support the victims around us, especially those individuals who are like single mothers and part of this
Mm.
consciousness raising groups that form pretty much independently in different regions. And
Mm.
people don't understand, like, this is not just about like feminists in Seoul or Busan or like major cities. Like different regions, we do care about like women's issues in the different cities and the regions, and because of in this way, I think a lot of young women who are participating in the movement and the women's rights organization are kind of like building our own local communities
Mm.
and practicing our female solidarity, and of course creating this very powerful network of support.
Mm.
And I think this is a resistant movement. This is a resistant movement against the gender-based violence. But like once you hear
Yeah.
this, it makes sense, right? But like
Yeah.
people don't really know about this and just like hate us, just like what I said before.
Mhm.
Oh, I
Mhm.
don't like feminists, like, and I had no idea what I was saying, of course.
Yeah, I heard it can be really dangerous in Korea to be identified as a member of
Oh
the
yeah.
4B movement or the Escape the
Hmm.
Corset movement, because there's a lot of anti-feminist men who are against it and can actually physically assault women who are involved
Right.
in it. Yeah, so do you think that's mostly just because there's so much ignorance around the issue and people are just quick to jump to conclusions and be judgmental without actually taking the time to understand the motives behind it?
All of it for sure. I think the main problem here is that a lot of politicians in South Korea are kind of encouraging the anti-feminists to
Mm.
attack the feminists, because it's
Oh
such
my
an
god.
easy way to divide people, right? And then
Right.
when they're divided in a certain like hatred, they don't really see the real problem in the world. They don't really see the powerful men, like specifically men in Korea, with like look into the statistics with like
Yeah.
how many men in the sea, like legal like,
Oh
decisions.
my god. Yeah.
Oh, I know, right? And then, so for them, it's such an easy way to divide people so they don't have to look into the real power dynamic in Korea. So that's like another, I guess, political use first, because they encourage those anti feminist men to willingly spend their time to stalk the openly feminist women and women's rights activists in Korea, and they encourage them. They give them like certificates of, 국민의힘 certificate of are they saying, like gender equal? Like they
Yeah.
call it
Yeah. Yeah.
hwahab. They
Yeah.
call it like old feminism stuff. We heard this in like 50 years ago, right?
Mm. Mm.
And I think the level of misogyny and also like dehumanization of women in South Korea is pretty much directly linked to how difficult it is to openly being feminist.
Mm.
Of course, this is also an issue that links with the domestic violence again and sexual assault, and how the emotional labor and hiring discrimination and wrongful termination just because we're feminists, involuntary like career breaks, and of course the glass ceiling and more, right? And of course this type of like forms of systemic and structured gender discrimination, basically reinforced by each derogatory terms against women and
Right.
created and encouraged in male-centered patriarchal society, is directly impacting our lives and agency, safety, and socioeconomic well-being in Korea. So this is not just about, men hating women yeah, there is that, but this is way more important to mention to how this is affecting our daily lives every single day, like every single walk that we take outside of our home, and how the home itself is not really exactly safe for many openly feminist individuals being at home and being with their biological
Right.
families who are not really approving their political views, and they're being, speaking up for women's rights issues. And we do have many feminist individuals who have faced a lot of domestic violence within their home because they're openly feminist, and because they need to hide their, and that's why if you look at every pictures or videos in Korean feminist movement, maybe like a protest outside, like a lot of people are covering their face, and because they have to not only protect themselves to be in the internet, to get bullied with strangers, and then they will find out where they work, where they live, and they'll find out about your family members and start threatening you. Not only that, but they also have to hide their existence from their family as well. So it is very abusive. It is very difficult being a feminist in Korea, I think. Yeah.
I just don't get it anymore. Why being a feminist is so radical? Like, we don't really do anything. You know what I'm talking
I
about?
know.
Like, by being a feminist, what I do is I just go to a non-violent protest and I
Exactly.
just start a podcast and talk
Mhm.
about fellow feminists.
Mhm.
And that's all
Mhm.
we do. And we don't
Mhm.
really hurt anyone. And we
I
just,
know.
and what do? They kill women.
They
They
kill
hurt
women. They
women.
exactly. They punch women. They kill women. They stab women. They do all kinds of violence
Yeah.
just
Don't
because we
understand.
exist. I know.
Yeah,
And then they
exactly.
cannot live without us. Like, guys, just leave us alone.
And still they want to have sex with us. It's so
I know.
crazy.
Like, hello. Can you
So
just pick your side just one,
yeah.
please? They
Oh
do
my
not
god.
understand that, like, them saying that, oh, I respect women because I love women. It doesn't, dude. It does.
Yeah.
There's no way I'm a women hater because, like, I love women. I want to have sex with them. Like, boy, you have, yeah.
I mean, if you're so anti-feminist, why don't you start your own 4B movement against
No,
women? You know, why don't you just not date
literally.
women? Why don't you just not have sex with women? It's just so
Exactly.
crazy.
They don't understand that being an anti-feminist is a completely anti-women. They do not understand that. They think, oh, I'm only against those small groups of women who are making pockets and making pockets and participating in non-violent protests.
This is
And
so
we're like,
hilarious.
just can we just live our life with, like,
Yeah,
in
just
peace?
leave us alone.
Yes, that's literally sums it up with all the 4B movement that
Mm,
there's like, please leave us alone. Like, okay,
yeah.
we try our best. We talk to them. We try to persuade them. Can you please not kill my best friend? Can you please not hurt me as your girlfriend? Like, after all of this crazy time, we just, like, yeah, we can't not have this civil conversations anymore. So you know what? The best thing
Yeah.
we can do is getting rid of you out of our lives so we can have a podcast safely and we can go to protest safely. That's all we do.
Yeah, exactly. Oh my, so hilarious. Rian, was there anything that you wanted to add to this?
Yeah, I feel like compared to the discourse around feminism in other parts of the world, these movements in Korea, these feminist movements in Korea about, the 4B movement and the Escape the Corset movement and everything, they're quite different to, the other feminist movements in other parts of the world.
Right.
So, do you think there are any kind of specific cultural or societal factors that contribute to this? I guess maybe everything we've been talking about until this point so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think, like, historically, I don't even know where to begin. So, like, if anyone's listening, I highly, highly encourage everyone to look into, like, some feminist historical book in Korea, and they're really, like, there are a lot of them. And
Mm-hmm.
so, like, because, like, we only have, like, a certain hours to talk about this, so
Mm.
going into all the historical lesson, I will definitely leave up to everyone who's listening. But yeah, of course, everything around us is making us to join this movement more and more. And I have to disagree with certain point of, I guess, the Western journalist viewpoint of how, oh, there's so little of participants in the 4B movement. And some women who are saying that, oh, I never heard of the 4B movement. There's no such thing as 4B movement in Korea. And think about why you don't hear them. Think
Yeah.
about why. Just think about, like, step back and think about why people are not feeling comfortable talking about their life decisions to you. You know what I mean?
Because you're the wrong person to talk about
Exactly.
this
You're
to.
the wrong person because you're the friend who's been always talking about your boyfriend and how great he is, even though we don't like him. And we're just emotional trash can to you. And we're kind of like just done with this pressure of being of
Yeah.
like baby factories and treating
Mm.
as reproductive organs. We're done. Like, okay, so I think this is like a perfect example with the 4B women, because a lot of 4B movement activists kind of like have shared their sense of life timeline has expanded dramatically since like them adopting the 4B as a lifestyle.
Right.
And I think this is so important to mention, because instead of pour all of their energy into finding the quote unquote perfect heterosexual relationship throughout their 20s and getting married, and this is something that I see a lot in the US. I'm a first gen immigrant here, and I'm still learning, like, every day, every corner. Everyone I talk to basically shaping my immigrant experience here, and I am not an expert of American society for sure, but like this is at least like my limited experience in the US that I have found. Like, there's some common ground, like in the US and Korea, some other countries. They really, a lot of women, I think, we feel like we have to follow this certain timeline in our lives.
Mm.
And I
Yeah.
think there's where the importance of intersectionality comes in, acknowledging that this quote unquote perfect heterosexual relationship doesn't really exist.
Mm.
Like, why do we keep looking for a unicorn?
So true.
Why do we do this? Why are we like, you don't have to. And I don't know, like having kids by, I don't know, like mid 30s. I mean we all know how it goes. And I
Mm.
think many of the women who are participating in the 4B movement are now kind of envisioning the entirely different futures. And
Mm.
including myself, because like I like helping out at the 4B movement, it really expanded my own timeline as a woman as well. And think about like what kind of business they want to start in their 40s, or maybe like exploring the new lifestyle in their like 60s, and pursuing this brand new degree in their like 80s or 70s. And I'm starting my college, and I'm like early 30s too. And some people are like, oh, isn't it a little bit late? Like, there's no such thing as being late, like. But if you're still trapped in this timeline, and if you don't see where you are in your timeline, you just get lost and just be part of the wave of a life that other people created. And then once you kind of regret it in the future, it's kind of that's a little bit too late. So,
Mm.
and I think the type of kind of opportunities that so many women have struggled to access because of the, I guess, the weight of the societal expectations and very much imposed obligations. And that's pretty much what I wanted to say about the common ground of Western feminism, and everything.
Yeah, so I was just wondering, actually, do you think this 4B movement is specifically a Korean thing that is relevant for
Mm,
Korean women to do, or is it more of a universal thing that all women around the world should be inspired by?
mm.
Because at the moment we're actually reading this book called Against White Feminism.
Yes, a great book.
Yeah, and I was thinking in the book it says that white women think that women in non-Western countries are in need of more feminism and more female empowerment because they have worse problems than white women in Western countries do. But that actually white women in Western countries do have all the same problems as women in non-Western countries, but they just haven't realized it yet because they somehow haven't woken up to how bad white men are as well. So in light of this, do you agree that this type of radical feminism is actually relevant to women all over the world, including white women in Western countries too?
Yeah, for sure, of course. Like, this is another, like, imperialism talk right here about like, oh, like non-white women. I hate saying this, like, other than like white feminists, or the women in the world should be awakened, should discover this,
Right.
Like, look, feminism is like didn't born in the US, or like didn't create it by white feminists. Like, we had our own own women's independent movement, like even before America was born, probably. Look, we've been, yeah,
They're
like
the babies.
they're the babies. Look, I just literally talked about this with my besties, like during lunch today, and like how America's history is like shorter than our siganjang in
So much
Korea.
shorter, yeah.
Literally, yes, so much
Mhm.
shorter. Like we have soy sauce that is older than America, and the fact that they think that like, oh, you should think about feminism, they should learn about feminism, this is just like such an imperialistic talk for sure. What I participate in this radical feminism, I think everyone should just give it a try. Look, I understand that like if this might be not for everyone, but at least just give it a try, and if you do like it, you can thank me later. And
Yeah.
as much as I thank my bestie who actually challenged and changed my thought, we can kind of like start listening to other people, how we approach feminism and how we practice feminism and how we make feminism into our daily lives. And this is not just limited in academia feminism, because now I'm, back to school doing a lot of like reading and writing. But as someone who's from like low income, I'm a first gen student for my family too, that 4B movement and the Escape the Corset movement is so effective, especially with women who could not afford education, who could not afford the college education, and
Mm.
who could not afford to being in the certain, I guess, the conversation. I mean, that is why people don't just understand the 4B and the Escape the Corset movement, how inclusive it is with different women's like social economical background. And as someone with low income background, I deeply do appreciate the fact that I was able to learn so much about my own history and my own things that was not only limited in white academia. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
So for me, this is very much practical, like hands, like you can, like this is like tangible like participation. You can feel it. You can see how your life is literally changing with women around you. So that's why I think it's worth a shot. Just give it a shot. If you if you don't know what it is, maybe try to see like, okay, why do I like my long hair? Like, do
Mm.
I like my long hair, or do I like the concept of my long hair? And I'm not saying that people who like long hair, they're not like, dude, you're not true feminist. No, like just
Yeah.
think about and challenge yourself, just like we do in so many white feminist book. Why do we love this? Is this really like our own desire or someone else's desire?
Mm.
I think 4B movement can be very much universal practice with a lot of people, and no one's gonna blame you or judge you if you decide to not to participate anymore.
Right. Right.
This is not the end of the world, but at least just give it a shot.
Mm-hmm. Especially, it's about creating a safe space and safe community. It's not just about
Mm,
not having sex. So it's really
mm.
relevant across the world, across cultures and
Oh
everything.
yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of which, I wanted to go back to this point about the definition
Mm,
of the 4B movement, and you
mm-hmm.
pointed out before that 4B movement is not just about celibacy, but it's about creating a safe space and a safe
Right.
community for
Mm,
and having autonomy.
mm-mm.
So it basically redefines intimate relationship for younger generations and younger feminists and for
Right.
women. So how do
Mm-hmm.
you personally envision intimacy, or what does meaningful connection mean to you within this framework of the 4B movement or outside of the 4B movement?
Mm.
Like, what kind of intimate relationship that you imagine for yourself and for your life?
Yeah, for like lifetime, I think it's a great way to put that. I always felt like I needed my echo chamber in my life. I didn't have any safe place, even in my home. My home,
Mm.
it was more of like a very judgmental, very much, like, okay, politically liberal, but culturally very conservative, especially with like women's body and like, raising me as a daughter in very certain ways. But this community is very much like chosen family style. Like, okay, we share the lifestyle together. We do not participate in certain things that we kind of have agreed with altogether. It's safe is not just the word that would describe how I feel about my community in the 4B. That's
Mm.
not enough. This is revolutionary. Because for me, like I have never been so inspired by so many women just around me in different careers, different lifestyle, different trajectory, different everything. It's amazing. What people don't understand with, and of course, people don't hear a lot of women in low income, how we don't really have a lot of role models, because
Mm.
where I was born and raised, my mother and my friend's mother, who were in the similar socioeconomic background, yes, they couldn't go to college because none of their parents really value their educations. This is only like in the 60s and 70s, right? And not that long ago. They were forced to be, working in the factory while they're supporting their brother's education, like higher educations, because they really value like men's education more back then. And how are we so different now? And now in the community, like we are actively expanding our life experience and also the different careers, because we see so many different women in so many different places, other than me just looking at my mom just working at the supermarkets as a cashier. Or of course those are really valid jobs as well, but like I only saw those limited jobs for middle-aged women. And now I see a lot more. Now I see a lot more people who are dreaming big and actually obtaining what they wanted to do in their lives.
Definitely. And we've also heard that and saw a lot of TikTok videos about the American women actually talking about the 4B movement,
Yeah.
especially after the presidential election and after Trump
Yeah.
got elected. So I feel like there is a lot of curiosity around
Oh,
this
yeah.
4B movement in the West. And I was wondering if you've been, talking about this with your like American friends,
Yeah.
or have you had any firsthand experiences of seeing people talking about it, or what are their reactions? What do you think about this curiosity around it in the West?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's a wonderful question, because even in the West, the diversity in the US pretty much, right? It makes sense for so many people. All of my besties from China, they're like, girl, this movement, it makes sense. Men are useless. And I'm like, girl, you go, you tell them, and you join us. And in my, answer wise, I think in both countries, for sure, in like limited experience in the US, of course, I acknowledge that there's a growing movement, I think, pushing for not only for the gender equality, but like challenging the traditional norms.
Right.
And of course, like aiming for the social change, like the structure change, but us actually participating as our lifestyle, not only being on the street, not only trying to change the law. Of course, we're doing all of that, of course, but adopting this new lifestyle. So even though I think the cultural context in the US could have been a little bit different, because we have different histories, but the main issues are pretty much similar about this. We want to focus on the gender equality, reproductive justice. Yeah, and yeah, let's talk about reproductive justice. The abortion is still in the very much gray area in Korea, right? And
Right.
things are going really bad in the US too. So we do have those common grounds about how our bodily autonomy has been not only in danger, but just being attacked constantly. And of course, yeah, we cannot just live out the workplace discrimination, gender-based violence, and of course, not enough women in politics. And that's why I think it really boils down to the need for women to represent other women, to have this full control over our bodies and lives. And that's why I think the 4-week movement getting the attention in the Western country, or like any other countries, I think is people are asking, do you think it will work in different countries? And I think it will work. I think it's very sustainable. It's very
Right.
sustainable. And again, I am asking people to at least give it a shot and
Right.
feel how amazing and empowering the community, like building our own community, is.
Yeah, that's amazing that it's starting to catch on in America, because June and I are always talking about how we think a lot of the times Western feminism is not very progressive, and that it's often just about sexual freedom,
I know.
which completely misses the point, because it's still placing the central focus on men and, making women sexual
Right.
objects for men, right? Yeah, so that's great that Western feminism is able to be exposed to, this 4B movement that looks at it from a different angle.
Right.
But actually, I was wondering, what do you think of how the movement has been received in Western countries? Because I saw some white American female journalists referring to it as the Korean version of the Me Too movement. I don't know. I just kind of felt that it seemed like just a way that Westerners are using their own movements as a benchmark against which to measure every other culture in the world.
God, again, Yes, exactly. Again, another imperative. Okay, I get that they're trying to understand things. They're trying to understand to make it easier for them to understand it. But look, not everything really has to be the American way. They're not
Right.
really the center of the world, and they need to hear it more often. Again, their history is shorter than our shikanjang in Korea. So their history is shorter than the soy sauce that we eat in Korea. So not
Right.
everything really is about America. But yeah, them calling it as a Korean Me Too movement. Well, we had our Me Too before the American Me Too. It wasn't calling as a Me Too, but it was pretty much the same context of how the literature, the society in Korea has been more women who are the writers are speaking up about their sexual abuse experience against their abusers. Those are
Mm.
timeline that were before the Me Too movement in the US. And I think for beat movement, yeah, people can, I guess, call it as a Me Too if they really want to understand the context shortly,
Mm.
but it's worth to look into it. It has the similar meaning and the weight of it, but it's different. It's different because we created it. And everything do not have to be wishy-washing with westernized terms. So yeah, I mean, if they wanted to say it as a Korea Me Too movement, look, we had it before.
Yeah.
Now we're moving forward with our own lifestyle. So if you have something to learn, you can learn from us.
Yeah. I'm always so frustrated and disappointed by this really condescending
I
imperial
know.
point of view when it comes to feminism as well.
Mm, mm,
Like,
mm.
we are not shy.
Oh my god.
Like, how they always talk about Asian women being shy and they have to be
Oh.
more proactive and they need to wake up and everything. They need to be more sexually confident. But at the end
Oh.
of the day, we are more progressive and we are more radical and we are way ahead.
We are way ahead. Oh my god. I think that's the biggest button I have in the US. Sweetheart, you should speak up. Sweetheart,
Yeah.
don't be shy. I am not shy. I'm probably gonna be the loudest Asian woman and fight. I am it's the spiciest, loudest,
Yeah,
breaking
exactly.
all of your,
And it's not even about race. It's all about me. It's about you. And we are
exactly.
not shy.
We are not shy. We are very much loud, probably louder than most of the women here. And yeah, it's just oh yeah, of course the 4B movement is great, but don't you think you should, add the men and educate them? Again, Western feminists. Look, our obligation is living our best lives, not
Yeah.
educating men. And that's the job for the educators.
And do they think that we haven't really done that before? We
Oh
already
my
tried
god.
that.
We try to look, we talk to them, we persuade them, we try to do everything. What they're saying, oh, raising a good boy will actually make the world better place. Okay, I get your point. But what have we done for the last how many thousands of years? Society
So
failed
true.
men. Society failed educating men, and you still have the hope? You still have the hope in men?
They still think that it's our responsibility to
I
teach them. Why don't you learn yourself?
literally, literally. Why would you waste your time teaching men who are not listening, who don't want to learn? And that
Mm.
is another reason why in the 4B movement we do have women who are listening. Who could be defensive in the beginning, because that's human, because we're human. This is a very natural human reaction, of course. It's a new term. It's challenging all of our needs and all the values that we had before. But yeah, Western feminists, hello, this is not just about you.
Yeah.
Oh god.
Yeah, so Haein, thank you so much for everything so far. And I just wanted to ask you one last question. So, what do you want to say, if you have any comment, to the fellow feminists out there who might be listening to this? I know so many of us are hiding, but I know that we all rise up in power and gonna be really openly feminist one day. So, if you have anything you want to share or anything you want to say to them out there in solidarity, we want to hear about it.
Okay. Hello, y'all. Hello, y'all. You're
Mhm.
okay. You are me. I am you. And I am crying.
You're
Okay,
actually
what?
crying.
No, I'm crying. Okay,
my
even
God.
though we really feel like our existence itself is full of like control, I don't know. It has been always like controversial. Like me questioning my own existence, me questioning my own values. But I think we really should cherish our rage in this world, and we're not just like labeling us as simply as like hatred against hatred without considering our own like historical and cultural contexts. It is deeply rooted in misogyny. And those are the things that make us so upset and oversimplifying the issues that we want to change every day. So what you're doing is correct. So let me tell you again, if you think like you are doing something wrong because people around you are saying it, you are what you're doing, all the turns and corners and mistakes and lessons that you learn, everything is correct. And everything is what it's supposed to be because we're freaking humans. So I suffer a lot to be quote unquote perfect feminist, and I really thought that there's like some certificate out there. If I don't participate women's rights protests like 3 times a week, I am not a true feminist. I used to think like that because I want to be hardcore. But now I understand that as long as we exist and we value our lives, and I'm only saying this because I'm sure my best friend is listening out there, and the fact that she couldn't bear this world and made her decision to not being in this world has been a really took a big toll on me. And just don't give up, just don't give up. Like we mean so much, it doesn't, people don't say it, but our life is so meaningful. And I appreciate everyone who's participating and reclaiming, creating the safe space and place in online and in person activism, who are putting all of those like sticky notes in Korea and doing all the, walking out and Women's March in the US, and everyone who's trying to get their education back in Afghanistan and everything, and everyone who's been genocide in Palestine, and all the women who could not celebrate Christmas or New Year's because they were genocide. Like, our lives mean something a lot more than what people are saying. So I appreciate everyone and every all young women out there who's taking real actions to stop this crazy world and actually stand up for each other. And I hope everyone to realize that sharing their life stories and timeline, it has been a profoundly life changing moment for me. So I don't know you, but I love you. So I hope
We
you
love
keep
you
going.
too.
I love you all. So yeah, this is like
Mm.
my 10-minute answer. I don't know. I've been thinking a lot about why so many feminists are killing themselves. Because it's
Yeah,
fucking hard. Because it's
it is
fucking
fucking
hard.
hard.
It is fucking hard. And people are expecting us to be saints
Mm.
and rational
Mm.
when the world is literally hitting us right and left. So yeah, let's continue to change the world and just don't die. Don't die on me. Don't die on me. I cannot bear another
Mm.
loss
Mm.
of my fellow feminists. And if you're having a hard time, please reach out because, this world is freaking a mess.
Mm.
So yeah, I just wanted to
Yeah.
say that.
Thank you so much for sharing your story, Haein. We really felt that.
Ah!
I'm
Thank you so
crying as
much.
well. I'm
Oh.
crying as well. And really, please don't die. It's really important for us not to lose you.
Yeah.
I am a one DM away, literally. If you're having a
Mm.
hard time,
Same,
like,
same.
we
We all
are
are.
very, yes, we all are. And then the beauty of being a feminist in this crazy world, we are very resourceful.
Mm.
We are
We
very
are.
resourceful. If you
Mm.
need a phone call, if you need a therapist, if you need to afford the therapist and then get the like scholarship or grants, like, we'll help you out. Just reach out. Just don't
Definitely.
die.
Definitely. Yeah.
Oh, Jiyun. Ryan, thank you so much for having me, both of you. This was been, I don't know, it kind of gives the besties vibe, like a dinner
Yeah.
conversation that you will never forget.
We're really glad that you
Oh,
felt that because that's the vibe that we wanted to have on our podcast, and we really wanted to create a safe space for us
yeah.
women to talk about this kind of stuff without being worried about being judged.
Right. No, honestly,
Yeah.
like, thank you so much for creating this safe place for me as well. Okay, I have nothing else to say in my mind because I say everything and I feel great. So yeah, thank you so much for being my batteries, y'all. Like, happy new year. I hope 2025. I hope our life gets a little bit more easier.
Yep.
But
Let's make it happen.
let's make it happen. We got this. We got this, y'all.
Thank you so much for listening to our latest episode, and if you like that, please share with a friend.
We'd also really appreciate if you could rate and review our podcast. And please get in touch if you have any feedback.
We'll be back again with another episode next week.